Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for attending this session. We are so excited to have you here and have you part of this big day of professional learning we have been so excited for. And when we sent out the survey to teachers asking, what sessions would you be most interested in for this day, Amy and I were really hoping that this one would be picked because we are very passionate about academic discourse and thinking protocols. Whenever we can, we are inserting protocols into learning. We are big fans of this as we think it's really improves student learning and really makes sure that they're doing that critical thinking along with their learning experiences. So again, I'm Lauren Swissman. I'm one of the tech and innovation coaches with the district, and you can find me on Twitter at Ms. Swissman, and I will be presenting today with Amy Fosak.
Good morning, everyone. We're so happy and excited that you could join us for this exciting day. You can also follow me on Twitter at amfosak_ed.
Awesome. Thanks, Amy. Okay, a couple housekeeping things before we dive in. This is, as you know, a live session, and it is being recorded and will be posted on the ProGrow course catalog if any of your colleagues would like to watch it in the future, or you would like to watch it again in the future. So please just keep that in mind that you are being recorded. And if you have questions during the webinar, please feel free to put them in the chat, as Amy and I will be taking turns monitoring the chat. And lastly, the link to this slide deck can be found at the link at the bottom of the screen, which is bit.ly/PUSD-PD protocols. And Amy will go ahead and put that in the chat for you. So all of the resources that we're linking and showing you today are on that slide deck that we'll be sharing. All right, so you've probably seen this now that this is the third round of sessions, that every session today, every topic that we're going over is under this larger umbrella of the essential question: how might we purposefully integrate technology to enhance student learning? And this is something that is really the main focus of Amy and I's jobs here. It's something that drives what we do. As a teacher, I have seen over and over again, and now as a coach, I see how much technology can really enhance student learning, right? We're using technology very much oftentimes as a substitute, and that really helps our day-to-day. But how are we really using technology to enhance student learning, to augment it, to redefine it, to really make sure that when technology is being used, it's for student voice and choice, for student personalization, for better data reporting. There is so much that can be used with technology to really enhance that student learning. And in this session here today, we'll be talking about how tech can be used in conjunction with those thinking and discussion routines and protocols to all come together to enhance that student learning outcome. So our agenda for today, we're going to go over 3 different protocols and routines. The first one is called visible learning, which is a discussion protocol. The second one is a thinking routine called reporter's notebook. And the last one that we're going to dive into is agree or disagree ladder on a tech tool that's one of my personal favorites. It's called Wooclap. We'll end with some tips and additional resources as well.
All right, so first we're going to go into some discussion protocols. Now, I know some of us, maybe not all, but in my own classroom experience, I've had where I put students in collaborative groups and I go around from group to group and I find that there is not much dialogue and discussion going on, not much communication, not much active listening and active speaking. It's just like crickets. So discussion protocols became kind of that answer to the problem I was having with getting students to collaborate effectively within group structures. And what discussion protocols are there step-by-step guidelines to structure learning experiences in order to make group collaboration and discussions more equitable, more academically challenging, and more engaging. And we have found that this is especially important when we are in this virtual learning setting, right? When we put students in those breakout rooms and we pop in and out of them, a lot of the times it's just quiet, right? Or we have that student who is very passionate, who is very outspoken, who's just kind of taking over and dominating the conversation. Discussion protocols help with getting all students talking and collaborating, right? They feel more confident because they know that there is a structure, right? Where students that had normally maybe were a little bit more hesitant to speak are now feeling more confident. So some of the benefits to students are it requires students to be both active listeners and active speakers. It increases their engagement, right? They're really having to make sure they're paying attention, listening, and speaking. And it creates an equitable space, and it eliminates those social barriers that may exist within our classrooms and within our group structures. So the first thing we're going to go over is a discussion protocol called visible learning. Now, some of you may have be familiar with this. You may have seen it as vertical learning, but what we've done is we've really adapted it to the virtual environment. You can also use this if you are in class and continue to use technology to enhance your instruction by doing this digitally. You can, again, take it, and if you wanted to make it non-digital, you can put it on a vertical surface, which you may have heard referred to as vertical learning. You can put it on, have students record just on their papers. It's really up to you. It's taking it and making it fit your classroom environment. So in this protocol, students are assigned a rich task. Lauren, can you go back one slide for me? Thank you. In this protocol, students are assigned a rich task and placed into random groups with assigned roles. And the groups work on the task at hand, and it's recorded to be shared out whole class. Now, it's very important that you start with a rich task, right? Because you really want students to be thinking critically. And if you give a very linear task that's just a black and white answer, they're not going to have those critical conversations and collaboration within the group structure. So what are the student roles within the discussion protocol of visible learning? There are 4 main roles. Again, you can take this and modify it to meet your classroom needs. The first is a scribe, or you can call it a writer, an author, but the main role of this student is to capture the thoughts of the whole group. Again, this can be done in a vertical setting or in an in-person setting with paper and pencil. The next role is a speaker. And this individual shares the thoughts of a group in the debrief and really works on paraphrasing what other members of the group are saying during that group collaboration. The next role is the inquirer. And the role of this student is to ask questions to the group members and clarify questions to the teacher, and clarifying questions, to the teacher on the group's behalf. So let's say you are popping in from breakout room to breakout room. The inquirer would be the one to pose questions to you on the group's behalf. And finally, the manager. And the job of the manager is to keep track of not only the time, but also to ensure that all members of the group are participating. So what are the steps for implementation? So the first step is you are going to create random student groups. Then you're going to review and assign the students in those groups their roles. You're going to introduce the rich task. You're going to monitor group learning and ask posing questions. So again, when the students come to you with questions, rather than giving them direct answers, you're going to ask posing questions to get them thinking deeper on the task at hand. And finally, in the end, you're going to wrap up and facilitate a whole class debrief. So what we've done is we've taken this and we've made it into a slide deck that you can implement in your own classroom, and you can apply your rich task to this slide deck that we're going to go over. The slide deck is linked at the end on our resources page as well. So this slide deck starts with just the teacher directions. So kind of giving you the back end work of how you'd go ahead and get this started with your students. So make a copy of the slide deck, of course, delete the direction slide, and make sure your setting permissions are turned to anyone with a link can edit, and then sharing the link with your students, right? Some of you may be sharing it in the Zoom chat or on Canvas, whichever way your students are used to getting curriculum sent to them from you. And finally, send the students to the breakout rooms and have them work on their assigned slides. So we also put a little tip in here that Lauren's going to dive deeper into, which is use this slide deck in grid view so you can really monitor what's happening with the groups while they are working in their collaborative grouping. Again, Lauren will dive a little bit deeper into that in a little bit. We left the roles on here so that students, if there was any confusion about what exactly they were in charge of, they would have this slide to kind of refer back to. The next slide we call is our table of contents slide. And this is, again, just to make it a little bit easier when you are working with, 30 students or 35 students on one slide deck, to make sure they can go exactly to their slide. They're not on the wrong slide. It's already pre-assigned for them. So if I am in group 1 and I'm going to go to breakout room 1, I can click on my link and it's going to take me right to the slide that is assigned to me. So I know then, okay, I'm the scribe, so I can put in all my students' name. It says it on there for me that I'm in breakout room 1. And now I'm going to go ahead and record all of the thinking and thoughts of my group on this slide deck. So again, this is just one protocol. At the end, we have more resources that link to other protocols that you can implement within your classroom. Again, it is just a great step in really enhancing and encouraging students to have those collaborative conversations within groups, making sure that all students have an equal voice in the collaborative grouping that they're working in. So the next thing we're going to go into are a little bit about thinking routines. Now, thinking routines can be done in a collaborative setting, a small group setting, an individual setting. It really just depends on how you want to use it within your classroom. So what a thinking routine is it provides students with a structure for better understanding concepts, strengthening their ability to think critically, creatively, and deeply. So what are some of those benefits to students and why would you use this in your classroom, right? Well, one of the reasons is it makes complex topics, ideas, and prompts, it makes them more accessible for all students. And it really helps students develop thinking habits and builds a community of thinkers. So the next thing we're going to do is go over a thinking routine called the reporter's notebook. And in this routine, students act as reporters and differentiate facts of a given topic or event from an involved character's thoughts and feelings. So the stance of a reporter really helps students clarify issues and points of agreement and disagreement by getting distance from their own perspective or initial understanding of a given situation, right? So this is something we are conversations we're having with our students. Even our littlest learners, we're taking, okay, what is a fact and what is opinion? With our older learners, we are getting into kind of these implicit biases that may exist and cloud our opinions and what is actually a fact. So this is a great protocol to dive deeper within with our students. So when we look at the reporter's notebook, what are the steps for implementation? So the first step, just like in the other procedure that we went over, is you're going to share your topic, the prompt, situation, story, or dilemma with your students. And then you're going to ask them to identify and list just the straight facts and events of the situation. Again, taking their opinion out of it. You're going to have them determine, is this actually a fact, or do I need more information about it to determine that it was actually a fact? And then next, you're going to have the students list their thoughts or feelings of the character or the participants involved in the story. So not their own, again, removing themselves from the situation. So as students name them, again, you're going to ask, are these clear facts or do they need more information about them, right? Are these thoughts and feelings of the characters, or do we need to dive deeper so that you can clarify or confirm? And then finally, you're going to facilitate a whole class debrief where they share their thoughts about this activity. So what we've done is we've, again, gone ahead and turned this into a slide deck for you. It's attached again, just like the other procedure at the end of this slide deck. So we start with the directions. On slide 2, you can see that it gives you the template to use with your students, the reporter's notebooks, where they can put their name. They have the facts and events. Are these clear, or do they need to be checked? Their thoughts or feelings, are they clear and need to be checked? And finally, their best judgment. Now, what you'll find when you implement in the classroom is that when you facilitate the debrief and you have a whole class discussion about this, some of the students' thoughts and their best judgment may change, right? And a lot of times that's a good thing because that's getting them to think critically, or it's getting them to make the realization that maybe that actually wasn't a fact and it was an opinion. So again, another activity and procedure that you can go through with your students to get them to think critically. So I see a question in the chat. It says, what do you mean by need to check? So the need to check would be something that, okay, I think this is a fact, or I think this was an event, but I'm not really sure. I need to go back and either look at the article or reread, or chat with one of my classmates to determine that it was in fact a clear fact or event that did take place. Okay, so next Lauren is going to go in and she's going to go over another sort of procedure and routine that we can do in our class. And she's going to show you how you can use an additional website called Wooclap to enhance this experience for your students.
Awesome, thank you, Amy. So as she said, I'm going to go ahead into this next protocol, and it is called Agree, Disagree Ladders, or just ladders on Wooclap. And this is how we've made it virtual with our virtual tool Wooclap. And Wooclap is one of our favorite tools. We are introducing it today with the ladders, but it can be used for many different tools and routines and formative assessments as well. So the definition of this routine is that it is a protocol for debating a statement or idea in an equitable and organized sequence. This allows all student voices to be honored and provides opportunities for perspective taking. So let's take a look at what this looks like and how it works. Oops. Okay, so here's how it starts. You first pose a question, a statement. So it's usually something like very similar to what Amy said, a rich task. This is a rich statement, something that can be easily debated, right? We don't want it something that has a clear-cut answer that students are going to know, oh, I definitely agree with this. This is definitely true. We wanted something to be a little bit tricky. So maybe they're just starting to learn about living things, and you might say, all living things need air, or all living things have a life cycle, right? Something that they might not know the clear answer to, and they're going to have somewhat of opinion either way, but maybe not be sure, and the class may be split on it. So you pose that statement to them. Then students post their opinion on their chosen side, agree or disagree. Then they then read their classmates' opinions, and they like the ones that resonate with them. Then the discussion starts with the most liked opinions. So in your classroom, this would work that you might have a whiteboard with Post-its on it, or a large piece of paper with Post-its on it, where students write their opinions on the Post-its. Then students go ahead and read the other Post-its and put a star on the ones that really resonates with them. And this can be on their side that agreed with them, or on the other side that they disagreed with, but something that kind of really stuck out to them. And you can model this for them as well, as saying, oh, you know, I agree with the statement here, but when I read this on the other side, it kind of made me think a little bit. So I'm going to put a star next to it. Then as a teacher, you would move the most liked ones to the top, and then that's where the discussion starts. So I know as a teacher in your classroom, when you put something that's very debatable up, you might have lots of people wanting to speak at once. So this is kind of just that format to make sure that everyone's voices are heard, right? Everyone's able to put it on that Post-it, but you're starting with the ones that are kind of the most debated or most thought about for your students. Now, how do we put this on to a virtual setting? And that's where Wooclap comes in. Before I show you how this tool works, I just want to share that this is a free tool, and there's no student sign up needed. You do need to sign in and create an account as a teacher. Again, it's free, but for students, they do not need to sign in. Yay, one less click for our students. You can just simply share a link with them so that they can access the question you are asking. The question type we're using today on Wooclap is called Brainstorm, but there are many different questions on there. So let's go ahead and take a look at this tool. You can find it by going to wooclap.com. And I have it open here, and I'm logged into my account. And you can see I've asked many different questions before. So I'm going to go ahead and create an event. And here are all my different question types. And this is also really awesome if you've just done a lesson with your class and you're not sure if they understand the objective of the lesson, and maybe you want to ask them a quick question, or you want to take a poll on something that they have a preference on. You can quickly just create a question type here and share the link with them to get their feedback, or to see if you're just doing a quick formative assessment. So again, all different types of questions that you can ask. The question type we're using today is called brainstorming. So I'm going to click plus on that. Now here's where you'd write in that question. And again, for students, you want to make it something that they can really kind of have a bit of a back and forth with. Because we're teachers here today, I'm going to go ahead and put a question that I like to often ask people, because I'm a big fan of pumpkin spice lattes and teachers are our audience. I'm going to put in the question, the statement, Starbucks, let's say pumpkin spice lattes are the best drink at Starbucks. So you can choose as participants whether you agree or disagree with this. So those are my two categories. I'm going to make sure that I turn on likes so that you can like each other's posts. Something else that you can turn on, I'm not going to do it today, is a timer. If you want students to see that they only have a specific amount of time to respond, I'm going to go ahead and click start now. So automatically it creates a link for me here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that link. Another way that I can share this with students is there's a QR code here, and I can just put this on my screen as well. I'm going to go ahead and put this in the chat so that everyone has an opportunity to get to this website. So if you go to wooclap.com/UKPGZB, you will be able to type in whether you agree or disagree with my opinion that Starbucks best drink is a pumpkin spice latte. So when you paste that link, you will see something similar to this. And then in the bottom left corner, you just pick agree or disagree. So maybe for agree, I write pumpkin is my favorite flavor and Starbucks makes great drinks. I'm going to go ahead and hit post. Now I can already see other people have posted here. Yes, fall favorite. So I'm going to go ahead and like that one. So you can even sort by the ones that agreed or sort by the ones that disagree. And I'm just going to give us a couple of seconds to post our thoughts and then like the ones that really resonate with you. So I'm going to look at the ones that disagreed on the other side, but maybe something that made me think. A bit too sweet, sometimes they actually make the pumpkin spices too sweet. So I'm going to go ahead and like that one because I resonate with that. So from my end on the teacher view, again, I see the agree, disagree, and this is something I might do on my share screen so that students can see the ones that are most liked, and you can see they're already floating to the top. There seem to be a lot of people that agree that the pumpkin spice lattes are a bit too sweet. And those on the agree side seem to favor the statement that, yes, it is a fall favorite. So maybe it's just favored in the fall, and that's something that we could talk about. So again, for the sake of time, you would let students spend a bit more time on this, putting in their statements and then reading and liking others. Now, here's where our conversation would start. I might say, someone said, and it's most popularly liked on this side of disagree, that they're too sweet. Would the person who said that like to start our conversation? And I would give that person an opportunity if they would like to start the discussion. So this kind of really focuses our conversation on those most debated points of this statement. So again, just a way for you to kind of put more structure into the conversation, really still honor each and every student's voice because they are said on here on the Wooclap, but making sure that we're really focusing and honing in our conversation, especially when we have limited times in our virtual or hybrid classrooms. It's also great because it's something you can come back and revisit later. I was working with a class the other day. They put the essential question on here, a statement that was related to it. And then at the end of the unit, they're going to go back and revisit what they wrote about that essential question statement. So many different ways that you can do this, different categories that you can make. Just a great way, again, to really structure the conversation in your classroom. All right. So now we've gone through 3 different thinking or discussion protocols and routines. So we're going to end with some useful tips that have been super helpful for Amy and I and when we're working with students. This first one Amy mentioned earlier, and it's Google Slides grid view. So what you usually see when you come onto Google Slides is standard view. You have all of your slides on the left and the main slide in the center that you're looking at. Grid view allows you to see all of the slides at once. So if we take a look at our screen here, right now we're in standard view. When I click here for grid view, I can see all of my slides at the same time. And if I zoom out, I can really see them even more. Zoom in, I can see less. This is super helpful when each student or each group has a slide and maybe they're working in breakout rooms, but I want to be able to see what each group or student is doing. It lets me know, oh, maybe this group, I don't see a lot on their slide. I might have to jump into their breakout room and kind of facilitate the conversation, right? So it gives me that overall picture of how my students are doing or how my groups are doing. Usually when we're in the classroom, we're able to see and walk around from group to group. We're able to hear which groups are talking and which ones might need some help. This is kind of that same concept, but within a virtual format. So Google Slides Grid View has been super helpful in allowing me to monitor all groups or students at the same time. The second tip that we have for you here is that table of contents slide. And you saw that when we had on Reporter's Notebook, all of the breakout rooms. When you're able to click on breakout room 1, it brought you to the slide that corresponds with that breakout room. Here's another look at what it looks like. Maybe you have a slide for each student. So the table of content slide lists each student's name, and they're linked to that slide in the presentation. So you can see here, Amy's slide is linked to this slide here. I would link Patrick's slide to his number slide as well, the number 5 slide. You do not have to just link to a website. You can link to future slides in the presentation. This makes it just super simple for students, so they're not scrolling through the entire slide deck. They can just simply go to the first slide and click on their slide, and they don't have to touch on anyone else's. The last tip we have for you here is making the background of a slide an image. I have in the past put, let's say I made 2 circles, I made a Venn diagram on the slide and asked students to fill it out. And then by accident, maybe they delete the circles or they delete the picture I put in there, or they make it too small or too big. And that can kind of cause a couple of problems as we're trying to get them to complete their work. So one thing we did here is we made what we actually wanted them to fill out or type over the background image of the slide. So right now I can't move this at all because I've made it the background of the slide. So I went to background and I chose this image that I had screenshotted from a digital worksheet. And I put it in here in the background. If I simply was just to bring in an image by going here, students would be able to move this. So this is just, that's a text box I put in there, an easy way to make sure that students are actually filling out and they're not manipulating what you've put in there by making it the background image. That way they can't move anything around and they can just type over it. All right, so that goes for all of our thinking and discussion protocols that we're going to share today and some tips and tricks. The last thing we're going to leave you with are some of the resources that we went over today. Number 1 and 2 are those ready to go and use Google Slides that Amy talked about in her thinking protocols. And the last 2 resources are some websites that we visit often that we think are super helpful when we're trying to find just the right thinking routine or discussion protocol. So this first one here brings you the Teaching and Learning Lab discussion protocols, and you can search for one based on the purpose of why you are using the protocol. So maybe you're trying to encourage turn taking or looking at different perspectives. These are all really great ones in here that we have used before. The second resource is one of my favorites that I always get lost in is Project Zero from Harvard's Graduate School of Education, their thinking routines. You can search thinking routines by topic, so digging deeper, introducing or exploring ideas. These are all really great thinking routines to structure this really critical thinking and discussions in your classrooms. All right, so we are running short on time, so I just want to go ahead and thank everyone and give a few minutes for Q&A at the end. If you have any questions, feel free to stay on. If not, thank you so much for attending today's session. We really appreciate all that you are doing, especially in this very unique school year. We wish you the best of luck as students return to the classroom next week if you are returning. Thank you again for attending our session.